Okay, so I'm going to try recording this on my tablet, and we'll see how well this turns out. This is my second try, so we'll see. Anyway, I wanted to do a TBR video real quick. The last booktube video I posted, I had been in the middle of reading a sequel to Matched called Cross by Ali Condi, I think was her name, and I read that book in 12 hours. That includes all kinds of interruptions, dinner, family stuff, whatnot. And I enjoyed it. I had a couple of misgivings about it, but I didn't have the time to record a review video of it. So it took me 2 weeks before I recorded a review, and then I haven't uploaded it, and I'm actually thinking I want to actually not read it all the way through, but like just kind of skim and make notes and record a better video. So I plan on trying to do that sometime this month, in between some of my TBRs, but the book was no longer available at the library. Somebody had actually checked it out. All 3 volumes or books in that series were checked out when I looked, so I will see. But for December, I put a whole bunch of books on hold. I haven't gotten all of them in that I want to do this month, but I really want to focus on rereading books and authors that I read as a child, primarily from the ages of like 13 to 17 years old. Some of these I might have read closer to 18, 19-ish. But the first thing on my TBR here is actually, an audiobook. This isn't a reread because it's by an author, Scott Odell, who was one of my favorites when I was a kid, but we only had a few of his books at our library when I was growing up, and this is not one of them. It is Black Star, Bright Dawn, but it's very similar in that it's about a young woman. It's kind of a coming-of-age adventure kind of story, and she's Native American. And that was one of the reasons why I love reading his books, because they took place in California, which is my original birth state, and it has to do with Native Americans, so these are 2 things that I always were drawn to. And I really enjoyed his books. I would love to get a hold of his book, Singing Down the Moon, because that was my particular favorite after I'd read a few of his books. That one was my favorite, but I haven't found a copy here now that I'm in Michigan State. So it's one of those weird things. There's certain books that I had in my home library growing up as a teenager and everything in Washington State that we don't have here in Michigan, but there's a lot of books by authors here in Michigan that I didn't have in Washington or California. So it's kind of interesting, a little give or take. So I'm looking forward to listening to that one. But also, I have a book by Judy Blume. I know she's a very well-known author and everything. I didn't read very many of her books, but I did read Here's to You, Rachel Robinson, which is actually a sequel, and I can't remember the name of the book this is actually a sequel to. Just As Long as We're Together. So, I didn't read the first one, which I guess is about these 3 female friends, but I did read this one, the sequel, because they actually had it on the shelf when I was a kid. I'm like, okay, well, I can't find the first book, and I thought it was going to be a book series, not just the 2 books, but I went ahead and I read this one, and I remember both, being really, really invested in the story as I was reading it, and I was probably 14 at the time that I read this book, and being emotionally invested in some of the drama that was going on because I could relate to some of those things. But on the other hand, there was a part of my brain that was just screaming at the main character because of the conclusions she kept jumping to, and then she just seemed very unempathetic and sympathetic to other people. And so a lot of her drama is actually self-created drama because she's not looking at these social cues and what people are saying to her and what they actually need. And so she's just like wallowing in self-pity through parts of the books that really irritated me, and a lot of things could have been handled if she just reached out to her friends and her family members, because they're dealing with stuff too. So I remember having those thoughts and everything. As an adult, will I sympathize more with her? Will I be even more annoyed? I have no idea. But I also do remember, like, just the writing style had a way of just sucking me into it really, really intensely. And so even though fundamentally I disagreed with the character, I just found like the writing style just sucked me in real good. So I'm looking forward to see how I respond to that now, since I haven't been a 14-year-old kid in quite a long time. The other read-through is, the rest of these are books by Hilda Stahl and her daughter Lori Stahl. So I read a lot of Hilda Stahl's kid stories. I read some of the Elizabeth Gales, not so many, but Best Friends. I love that book series. I was actually surprised when I discovered there was only 16 books in that series, because it seemed like that there was a lot more, but I read all of her Sadie Rose books, all of the Best Friends books that my library had. We were missing some volumes. So, and then in this, Amber Ainsley Detective, there's like I think there's only 4 books in this series. Maybe there's more, but our library only had 2 of them, and I read both of them, and I really liked them. And one of the interesting things about this is, even though Amber Ainsley is the redheaded detective who's our primary character, the story is told, I believe, third person limited, from the perspective, though, of one of the characters involved in whatever the case is. So, like, the first book I read was actually a friend of Amber Ainsley was tangled up in the middle of this case that Amber's investigating. So, Amber's kind of like in the background doing her detective work of her own stories, but this way we get like a new romance in each volume as well. So, and we get to see Amber work and her doing her thinking and her detective work from somebody else's point of view without it being like a sidekick character. So this was the first one, which was the second one I read, and I'm looking forward to rereading that and seeing like how much that writing style holds up, and also, yay, I think here in Michigan, they actually have all of the books in this series. So I think I'm going to try to read all of these in order this time. And also, I love the fact that, like, they're not super thick. Like, they're fun, they're adventurous, they're mysterious, you got a little romance going on, but she doesn't take herself so seriously that she stretches it so long. It's like, you don't need the story to be that long. I like stories are just the right length. They don't overstay. The next one, this is a super thick book. But it's actually 3 books altogether from her trilogy, the White Pine Chronicles. So it covers The Covenant, The Inheritance, The Dream. I remember reading The Covenant, and I really liked the romance in that story. I remember reading The Inheritance. I liked the female lead character in that one better than I did the one in the first book. And I do not remember The Dream. In fact, I'm pretty sure our library didn't have that one. I could be wrong. Maybe when I start reading it, when I get to that part, I'll be like, oh, yeah, okay, now I remember that one. But basically, it's about 3 different generations of families that own these particular woods that were logged, and the business side of preservation and logging and keeping that balance, as well as just, romance of the people involved and social politics and things like that. So I am looking forward to rereading this one, and just because I think, because it is a romance and it's been a while since I've read a good romance, I'm hoping to really enjoy these. And I probably read that one when I was about 16, maybe 15. Next, these are, The Women at Catawba and the Winds of Catawba. And the thing is, this is the last book Hilda Stahl wrote, but I don't think it was published until her death in 93. So she was dying when she wrote this book, and it's kind of a dark book from what I remember. I remember the impressions of going, wow, this is really deep. I mean, it's written by a woman who wrote about the foster care system and abuse and sexual assault and stuff, and Christian kids literature. So she didn't shy away from these subjects, but she was more age appropriate, of course, with the children's and things. And so I just remember kind of feeling icky with some of these books. There's only the 2 books. Her daughter wrote the sequel, Lori, The Winds of Catawba. And I felt like this definitely, the style didn't quite feel like Hilda Stahl's, which being written by her daughter rather than her makes sense. And I haven't found any other books under Lori Stahl's name. I'm going to have to look to see if maybe she wrote or published under her married name after this, because I think she only used her maiden name on this because it is a sequel to her mother's last work. And I don't know how much of the story they'd planned out together while her mom was sick and they were working on the first one. I have no idea. I would like to know some of that backstory stuff, and after December, after I do these reads and stuff, I'm thinking about trying to dig up more biography and information about her writing style and her writing advice, because she taught writing and things, so I'm hoping to find some things about that to do a special video, just highlighting her as a writer and her writing career and things. So I'm kind of leery about how I'm going to end up feeling about these books, but also, since I'm in my 30s now and just different perspective, I don't think these are going to be as dark to me now as what they did as a 16, 17-year-old kid. And just like with the Judy Blume book, I'm curious to see how I respond to these now, and that's the point of doing these read-throughs, because it was basically half my life ago that I read these, and they did definitely have a huge impact on what I expect from books and writing styles, and just I liked Hilda Stahl's third-person limited writing style. I liked her sense of adventure. I liked that she had so many female characters that they might have fit certain archetypes, but they had certain interplay on one another that you could tell, okay, these are very distinct characters. At least as a kid reading them, they definitely felt more fleshed out. As an adult, I don't know if they're going to seem a little more flat, or if I'm still going to appreciate those characters as much as I did as a kid. I'm really looking forward to when I get some of the young readers, and I put on hold some other book series by other authors as well, and I couldn't help but notice some patterns in some of the books and things I read. So in January, I think I'll cover more of like the young readers and comparing some of those series and what those patterns and things were. And in December, I'm just going to deal with some of these adult or more adult novels and Scott Odell. I'm looking forward to listening to that one because I haven't read that one, but it's down the same vein of some of the books that he did that I did read as a kid and I really enjoyed. So that's everything for now. Sorry about the quality of this. I had downloaded a video editor program, but then it wouldn't let me actually cut the video to edit it. So I was like, what's the point of having an editing software that won't let you actually edit? Like, it only lets me do, like, sound, music, and stuff like that, but I just, whatever. Alright, well, here's to a good December. Yay, I mean, we're not quite halfway through. I have time to read these, right? Yay! Alright, bye.